The day my father told me I would never run the family business was also my 25th birthday. I remember standing in his mahogany scented office, wearing the navy dress I'd chosen specifically to look professional, while he casually destroyed every dream I'd ever had. I'm Anna, and I grew up believing Rivera Enterprises would one day be mine. What a joke that turned out to be. Anna, sweetheart, my father said, not even looking up from his laptop. I know you've been working in accounts, but it's time we had a frank discussion about your future. I straightened my spine, hope flickering in my chest. After 3 years of working my way up from the bottom, proving myself in every department, surely he'd finally seen my potential. You need to start thinking about other career options, he continued, finally meeting my eyes. The company will go to Kingsley. He's the natural choice. The words hit like a physical blow. Natural choice? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Dad, Kingsley can barely manage his own bank account. Last month, he spent the entire quarterly budget for his department on a yacht party. That's exactly the kind of thinking that makes you unsuitable, my father replied, his tone sharp. Business is about relationships, Anna. Your brother understands that. You're too rigid, too focused on numbers and procedures. A knock at the door interrupted us. Kingsley burst in, his designer suit wrinkled and his hair disheveled. Dad, the Thompson deal is going south. Their CEO is threatening to walk. My father stood immediately. What happened? Well, Kingsley scratched his head. I might have forgotten to send them the revised contract, and then I kind of missed 3 meetings because of that thing in Vegas. I watched my father's face redden, but instead of the explosion I expected, he simply sighed. We'll fix it. I'll make some calls. The unfairness of it all made me feel sick. So when Kingsley screws up, you'll fix it. But when I increased departmental efficiency by 30%, it barely warranted a nod. That's enough, Anna, my father warned. This discussion is over. The decision is made. Kingsley had the audacity to throw me a sympathetic look. Come on, sis. You know how it is. Dad needs someone who can handle the pressure, make the tough calls. Like you did with the Thompson deal? I shot back. Anna! My father's voice cracked like a whip. Leave, now. I turned to go, but paused at the door. You know what? You're right about one thing. This discussion is over, but not because you say so, because I'm done trying to prove myself to someone who never intended to give me a chance. My mother was waiting in the hallway, her face etched with concern. I heard raised voices. Anna, sweetheart, did you know? I asked, my voice breaking. Did you know he never planned to let me run the company? She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Your father, he has certain traditional views. I've tried to talk to him, but you didn't try hard enough. I finished for her. Nobody ever does when it comes to standing up to Gregory Rivera. I walked past her, past the family photos lining the walls. Pictures of Kingsley's graduations, his achievements, his moments in the spotlight. There were precisely 3 photos of me: my birth, my high school graduation, and one awkward family Christmas photo where I was half hidden behind my brother. Zara, my best friend and the company's marketing director, caught up with me at the elevator. Hey, I just heard, your dad's an idiot. No, I said, pressing the lobby button with more force than necessary. He's worse than an idiot. He's a man who's about to realize he made the biggest mistake of his life. What are you gonna do? I watched the floor numbers tick down, my mind already racing with possibilities. I'm going to build something bigger than Rivera Enterprises, something so successful that when I finally buy out my father's company, and I will, he'll have to admit that he backed the wrong horse. Zara's eyes widened. That's, that's one hell of a birthday resolution. It's not a resolution, I said as the elevator doors opened to the lobby. It's a promise. I walked out of Rivera Enterprises that day with nothing but my purse and a fire in my belly that would fuel me for years to come. My father thought he was teaching me a lesson about knowing my place. Instead, he taught me the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. As I hailed a cab outside, my phone buzzed with a happy birthday text from Kingsley. I deleted it without reading it. The time for family niceties was over. From now on, I would be known for one thing only: success. 6 months after walking out of Rivera Enterprises, I sat across from Zara in my tiny rented office space, surrounded by takeout containers and business plans. You really think this will work? Zara asked, gesturing at my laptop screen. Starting a consulting firm that specifically targets family owned businesses in crisis? I took a sip of my now cold coffee. Who better to understand the pitfalls of family businesses than someone who's seen every mistake up close? Fair point. Zara pulled out her checkbook. That's why I'm in. How much do you need? Zara, no, I can't take your money. She started writing anyway. Shut up and take the investment. I've seen what you can do. Besides, I didn't quit my cushy job at Rivera Enterprises just to watch you struggle with startup capital. The check she slid across the desk made my eyes widen. This is your entire savings. It's called believing in you, dummy. Now, tell me about this lead you mentioned. I pulled up an email. Remember Marcus, that luxury hotel chain owner Dad always complained about? His daughter reached out. They're hemorrhaging money, and she wants fresh eyes on the problem. Your father's competitor is our first client. Zara's grin turned wicked. Oh, this is too perfect. The meeting with Sarah Marcus was scheduled for the next morning. I arrived early, my new business cards, feeling foreign in my pocket. The hotel lobby gleamed with marble and crystal, but I could spot the signs of decline: worn carpet edges, slightly dusty chandeliers, staff that looked a touch too harried. Sarah Marcus turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who didn't waste time on pleasantries. Let's be honest, we're losing market share to boutique hotels. Dad refuses to modernize. Can you help? I can, I said, opening my laptop, but you won't like my initial findings. For the next hour, I walked her through my analysis: outdated systems, bloated management, resistance to digital transformation. Sarah's face grew increasingly grim. The good news, I concluded, is that these problems are fixable. The bad news is that your father will fight every change. Sarah leaned back. You're Gregory Rivera's daughter, aren't you? I stiffened. My work stands on its own merits. Relax, she smiled. I'm hiring you because you understand dinosaurs like my father. The fact that it'll annoy Gregory is just a bonus. The contract she offered was bigger than I dared hope for. Back at the office, Zara squealed when she saw the numbers. This is amazing, but can we handle a client this size? We'll have to, I said, already making calls. By midnight, I'd secured 3 more team members, all former Rivera employees who'd been overlooked or pushed aside. The next 3 months were a blur of 18-hour days, presentations, and battles with the old guard at Marcus Hotels. But slowly, things began to change. Occupancy rates ticked up. Online reviews improved. Sarah's father even grudgingly admitted some of our innovations were working. Then came the morning I opened my industry newsletter to see the headline: Marcus Hotels reports record quarter, Rivera Enterprises loses ground. My phone rang almost immediately. It was Marlo, my father's longtime executive. Your fingerprints are all over Marcus's turnaround, she said without preamble. Gregory is livid. Good, I replied, but my hand shook slightly as I set down my coffee. He's in denial, Marlo continued, but some of us can see what's coming. Keep doing what you're doing, Anna. This company needs a wake-up call. After hanging up, I found Zara standing in my office doorway. I just got off the phone with 3 potential clients, she announced. Words getting around about what we did for Marcus. They all want meetings. I stared at my growing team through the glass walls, all of them focused, determined, believing in our mission. Then, let's give them meetings. It's time to scale up. Anna? Zara's voice softened. Your mom called earlier. She wants to have dinner. I shook my head. Tell her I'm busy building an empire. You can't avoid them forever. Watch me. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Now, let's go land those clients. The best revenge isn't just success, it's success that makes headlines. As we walked into the conference room, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Garrett, a business rival I'd clashed with at Rivera Enterprises. Impressive work with Marcus. Want to discuss a potential collaboration over dinner? I smiled, remembering how he'd once dismissed me as Gregory's ambitious daughter. Now he wanted to collaborate. I typed back, sorry, too busy succeeding. Rain check? The pieces were falling into place faster than I dared hope. Soon, very soon, my father would realize that his biggest mistake wasn't just losing me, it was creating his most formidable competitor. Did you see this? Zara burst into my office, waving her tablet. It had been 18 months since we'd started our firm, and the morning headlines made my heart skip. Rivera Enterprises stock plummets after failed merger attempt. Kingsley's handiwork, I assume? I kept my voice neutral, though my fingers itched to grab the tablet. He tried to acquire Thompson Tech without proper due diligence. The deal fell apart spectacularly. Zara perched on my desk. Your father's trying to contain the damage, but... My phone buzzed. Marlo again. I put her on speaker. Anna, it's worse than the papers are saying. Your brother's been making deals behind your father's back, trying to prove himself. We're bleeding money. Not my problem, I said, but my stomach clenched. There's more. Marlo lowered her voice. Kingsley's been doctoring reports to hide losses. Your father just found out. A knock interrupted us. My assistant poked her head in. Your mother's here. What? I stood up so quickly my chair rolled back. I didn't. But there she was, Eliana Rivera, looking elegant as ever in her designer suit, though her face showed new worry lines. Anna, sweetheart, we need to talk. Zara and my assistant quietly disappeared, closing the door behind them. If Dad sent you, he doesn't know I'm here. Mom sat down, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. But he's not sleeping, barely eating. The company, it's in trouble. That tends to happen when you put an incompetent playboy in charge, I said, more sharply than intended. Kingsley's been suspended from his duties. She looked down at her hands. Your father? He's starting to realize his mistake. Starting to realize? I laughed bitterly. I increased our consulting revenue by 300% last quarter. I turned around 6 major companies that were on the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, Kingsley's running Rivera Enterprises into the ground. Dad's not realizing his mistake. He's facing the consequences of it. Anna, please. The company's been in our family for 3 generations. And it would have stayed that way if Dad hadn't been so blindly sexist. I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. You know what's ironic? Every skill I'm using to build my own empire, I learned from watching him. The difference is, I learned from his mistakes too. My phone buzzed again. Garrett. I ignored it. Your brother's not coping well, Mom continued. He's drinking more, making scenes at board meetings. Not my problem. He tried to call you last week. I know, I blocked his number months ago. I turned back to face her. Why are you really here, Mom? She stood up, smoothing her skirt. Because I remember a little girl who used to sit in her father's office, pretending to make business calls, who believed in building things, not destroying them. That little girl grew up and learned that sometimes things need to fall apart before they can be rebuilt properly. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the glass walls, I saw Kingsley, disheveled and clearly drunk, arguing with my security team. Perfect timing, I muttered, yanking open my office door. What are you doing here? Come to see the golden child, he slurred, stumbling forward. Little Miss Perfect with her perfect company and her perfect revenge. You're embarrassing yourself, I said coldly. Again. You think you're so much better than me? He laughed hysterically. At least I didn't abandon my family. No, you just destroyed everything they built. I nodded to security. Get him out of here. Anna, Mom pleaded, he needs help. Then help him. But don't come here expecting me to fix your mistakes. I'm done cleaning up Rivera messes. After they left, Zara found me staring at my computer screen, not really seeing it. You okay? Pull up everything we have on Rivera Enterprises financials, I said. Every report, every rumor, every whisper. Anna, the company's vulnerable. If Kingsley's been hiding losses, there might be grounds for a shareholder revolt. I started typing furiously. Get me a meeting with Garrett. He's been trying to get my attention. Let's see what he knows. Are you sure about this? Going after your family's company. They stopped being my family the day they decided I wasn't good enough. I looked up at her. Besides, someone needs to save Rivera Enterprises from itself. Might as well be me. As Zara left to make the calls, I opened my bottom drawer and pulled out an old photo. Me at 8 years old, sitting in my father's chair, wearing his too big suit jacket. Back then, I thought I needed his approval to succeed. Now I knew better. And soon, so would he. Garrett hadn't changed much since our days at Rivera Enterprises. Still devastatingly handsome. Still wearing that irritating smirk that had once made my knees weak. We sat in a private booth at his favorite upscale restaurant, the same place where he'd tried to kiss me 3 years ago. You're looking well, Anna, he said, swirling his wine. Success suits you. Let's skip the small talk. What do you know about Rivera's situation? His smirk widened. Direct as ever. That's what I always liked about you. He leaned forward. Your brother's been borrowing money from some questionable sources, the kind that charge interest rates that would make loan sharks blush. My hand tightened around my water glass. How bad? Bad enough that your father's considering selling off divisions to cover the debt. He paused. I could help, for the right price. What's your angle? Maybe I just want to work with you again. His foot brushed mine under the table. I pulled back. Try again, he sighed. Fine, I want their Asian markets. Help me acquire those divisions, and I'll help you get whatever you want. You mean help you steal them for pennies on the dollar? I stood up. I'm not interested in being your corporate raider sidekick. Anna, wait! He grabbed my wrist. There's more. Your father's looking for buyers, but quietly. He doesn't want the market to panic. I have the documents to prove it. I sat back down. Show me. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails and attachments. My stomach churned as I read. The situation was worse than I'd imagined. Why are you showing me this? Because I remember how they treated you, how your father dismissed you, how Kingsley mocked your ambitions. His eyes softened. We could take them down together. I don't need your help to take them down. No, he agreed, but you might need it to build something better from the ashes. He slid a business card across the table. Think about it. My offer stands. Back at my office, Zara was waiting with more news. 3 more executives jumped ship from Rivera today. The rats are fleeing the sinking ship. Get me Marlo on the phone. 10 minutes later, Marlo's tired voice filled my office. Anna, I was about to call you. Your father's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. How bad is the bleeding? Worse than the numbers show. Kingsley didn't just hide losses, he created fake accounts, forged signatures. We're talking potential criminal charges. My breath caught. Does Dad know? He suspects. That's why he's been drinking in his office since noon. She paused. Anna, I know you hate him, but I don't hate him, I interrupted. I just need him to understand what he did, what he's still doing. After hanging up, I found myself staring at Garrett's card. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Please call me. Your father needs you. Instead, I called Garrett. That was quick, he answered. I'm not interested in destroying Rivera Enterprises, I said firmly. I want to save it. By taking control, by doing what should have been done years ago, running it properly. He was quiet for a moment. You know this won't be easy. Your father won't give up control willingly. He won't have a choice. I pulled up the company's latest financials on my screen. But I need your resources, your connections. And what do I get? A partnership. Not in Rivera Enterprises, that's non-negotiable, but in future ventures. Plus, I'll give you first refusal on any Asian market deals we don't want to keep. Interesting. I could hear him smiling. And what about dinner? Don't push it, he laughed. Deal. I'll have my team draw up the paperwork. After hanging up, I called Zara into my office. Cancel my meetings for the next 2 days. We're going to war. What's the plan? I pulled up a presentation I'd been working on for months, my blueprint for saving Rivera Enterprises. First, we gather allies, call every major shareholder, send them these projections, show them what the company could be under competent leadership. And then we crash my father's board meeting. I smiled grimly. It's time to show him exactly what his unsuitable daughter can do. As night fell over the city, I stood at my office window, watching lights flicker on in buildings across the skyline. Somewhere out there, my father was probably still in his office, drowning his sorrows in expensive scotch, wondering where it all went wrong. Tomorrow he'd find out, and this time I wouldn't be the one walking away. My phone buzzed one last time. Kingsley. I know what you're planning. Don't do this to Dad. I blocked his number again without replying. Some bridges needed to stay burned. The Rivera Enterprises boardroom looked exactly as I remembered, all mahogany and leather, reeking of old money and older egos. I stood outside, listening to the raised voices through the door. This is a disaster, someone shouted. We're facing potential SEC investigations. If we could just explain. That was Kingsley, his voice slurred even at 9 in the morning. Explain what? My father's voice boomed. How you forged my signature? How you hid millions in losses? Zara squeezed my arm. Ready? I straightened my jacket and nodded to Garrett, who stood with our legal team. Let's crash their party. We pushed through the doors. The chaos inside froze as every head turned toward us. My father's face went from red to white in seconds. Anna? He gripped the edge of the conference table. What are you doing here? Saving your company. I strode to the front of the room, Garrett and our lawyers filing in behind me. Though from these financials, I'm not sure it's worth saving. You have no right to be here, Kingsley stammered, half rising from his chair. Actually, she does. Garrett stepped forward, dropping a thick folder on the table. As of this morning, Miss Rivera's company controls 23% of Rivera Enterprises shares. The room erupted. My father slammed his hand down. Impossible. Very possible, I said, pulling up our presentation on the screen. Your shareholders are scared, Dad. They've watched their investments tank while Kingsley played businessman. We offered them a way out. This is a hostile takeover, Kingsley accused. No, I corrected. This is an intervention. Marlowe, Would you like to share what you found in the Singapore accounts? Marlowe stood, hands shaking slightly as she faced my father. Sir, I've been trying to tell you. The losses aren't just bad investments. There's evidence of embezzlement. The color drained from Kingsley's face. My father sank into his chair. You have two options, I continued, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Option 1. I take this evidence to the SEC. Kingsley faces criminal charges, the company faces a public scandal, and your legacy ends in disgrace. You wouldn't, my father whispered. Option 2. I clicked to the next slide. You accept our buyout offer. We restructure the company, handle the crisis quietly, and preserve what's left of the Rivera name. This is absurd. Kingsley stood up, swaying slightly. Dad, you can't seriously? Sit down, my father snapped. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. What are your terms? I nodded to our lawyers, who distributed documents. Full control. Kingsley steps down immediately. You remain as chairman emeritus, a figurehead role only. We'll handle the transition privately to avoid market panic. And if I refuse, then I'll do what you taught me. Crush the competition. Only this time, the competition is you. The room fell silent as my father flipped through the papers. Finally, he looked up, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in 2 years. You planned this, all of it. No, I said quietly. You planned it the day you decided I wasn't good enough. I'm just following through. He stared at me for a long moment, then reached for a pen. Kingsley lunged forward. Dad, no, she's destroying everything we built. You destroyed it. Our father's voice cracked. I just didn't want to see it. He signed the papers with a shaking hand. Get out, I told Kingsley. Security will escort you to clear your office. As Kingsley was led away, cursing and threatening, my father stood up slowly. I suppose you're happy now, he said. Happy? No. Satisfied? Getting there. I turned to the board members. Meeting adjourned. My team will contact each of you to discuss next steps. They filed out quietly, leaving me alone with my father. He looked lost, standing in the room he'd commanded for 30 years. I never wanted this, he said finally. Yes, you did. You wanted a successor who would fight for this company at any cost. You just didn't expect it to be me. Anna, he reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Save it. We have a company to save, and I have 2 years of mess to clean up. I suggest you go home and explain to Mom why her son might be facing criminal charges. He walked to the door, then paused. You're better at this than I ever was. I know, I said. That's what terrified you. After he left, Zara and Garrett found me sitting in my father's, my, chair. Well, Garrett smiled. That was entertaining. It's not over, I said, pulling up the company's files on my laptop. This is just the beginning. What now, boss? Zara asked. I looked around the boardroom, remembering all the times I'd been told I didn't belong here. Now, we build something better, something worthy of the empire I just bought. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. We need to talk. This time, I didn't ignore it. After all, I had won. Now came the harder part, deciding what kind of victor I wanted to be. My mother's hands trembled as she poured tea in our old family kitchen. 3 days had passed since the takeover, and the media was having a field day with headlines about the Rivera Civil War. Your brother's in rehab, she said, sitting across from me. Voluntary admission. The doctors say he's having a breakdown. Good, he needs help. I kept my voice neutral, though something twisted in my chest. Has he mentioned anything about the missing money? Anna, please, can we not talk business for 1 minute? She reached for my hand. This is still your family. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Mom's face fell as she checked her phone. That'll be the lawyers. Your father's in his study. I followed her through the house, past photos that now felt like relics from another life. In the study, my father sat behind his desk, looking small without his usual power suit and commanding presence. Our lawyers arranged themselves on opposite sides of the room like opposing armies. "Let's make this quick," I said, taking a seat. "We need to discuss the transition plan." "Actually," my father's lawyer cleared his throat, "Mr. Rivera has some concerns about the terms." I felt my jaw tighten. "The terms he signed?" "Under duress," the lawyer continued, "given the emotional nature of the situation." "Stop!" My father raised a hand. "Just stop." He looked at me directly. "I'm not contesting the agreement. I just want to know one thing. What are you planning to do with my company?" "Your company?" I pulled out my tablet and pulled up a presentation. "You mean the company that's hemorrhaging money? The one with 3 pending lawsuits? That company?" "Anna," my mother whispered, but I continued. "First, we're conducting a full audit. Every account, every transaction. If we find more of Kingsley's creative accounting, we deal with it privately. Then we restructure, cut the dead weight, modernize operations, rebuild our reputation." "You'll destroy everything that makes Rivera special," my father protested. "You mean the nepotism? The old boys club mentality? The resistance to change that's killing us in the market?" I stood up, pacing. "Did you know our main competitor's revenue is up 40% since implementing the exact strategies I suggested 2 years ago?" The room fell silent. My father seemed to age another decade before my eyes. "I built this company," he started, "and now I'm saving it." I cut him off. "Unless you'd prefer bankruptcy? Because that's where Kingsley's leadership was heading." My mother made a small, pained sound. "Please, both of you." "Mrs. Rivera," my lawyer intervened gently, "perhaps we should discuss the PR strategy for announcing the leadership transition." As they talked, my father motioned me to follow him to the window. We stood there, looking out at the garden where I used to play as a child. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said quietly. "No, you just wanted to control me, to keep me in my place." I turned to face him. "Tell me something. If I'd been born a boy, would any of this have happened?" His silence was answer enough. "That's what I thought." I walked back to the lawyers. "Send me the final drafts of the transition announcement. We'll release it tomorrow." "Anna, wait." My father's voice cracked. "The London division. There's something you need to know." For the next hour, he detailed more problems: hidden debts, questionable contracts, partnerships built on shaky foundations. With each revelation, my mother's face grew paler. "Why didn't you tell me any of this?" she asked him. "Because he was protecting his pride," I answered for him, "just like he always has." As we wrapped up the meeting, my mother pulled me aside. "Stay for dinner, please. We need to start healing somewhere." I looked at my father, still at his window, shoulders slumped. "I can't. I have a company to run." I softened slightly at her expression. "But maybe next week, once the dust settles." Outside, Zara was waiting in the car. "How bad was it?" "Worse than we thought." I handed her my notes, but also better somehow. Better how? I thought about my father's defeated posture, my mother's plea for healing, the weight of family legacy pressing down on all of us. Because now I know what I'm fighting for. Not just revenge anymore, something bigger. Like what? My phone buzzed, Garrett, with updates about the London situation. But there was also a text from Kingsley's rehab facility. "Your brother would like to speak with you. Will you accept the call?" "Like redemption," I said finally. "For all of us." Zara nodded, understanding. As we drove back to the office, I typed a response to the rehab facility. "Not yet, but soon." Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt overnight, but maybe, just maybe, They could be rebuilt better than before. The day I officially took control of Rivera Enterprises dawned bright and cold. I stood in our office, watching the morning news coverage on mute while Zara read me the latest numbers. Stock's up 12% since the announcement, she said. The market likes the change. A knock interrupted us. Marlowe entered looking nervous. Your father's here. He wants to clean out his office. Tell him to wait. I'm already here. My father stood in the doorway, a cardboard box in his hands. He looked smaller in casual clothes, more human somehow. Zara and Marlowe quietly excused themselves, leaving us alone in the tension-filled room. The painting stays, I said, nodding to the abstract piece behind the desk. It's company property. I know. He set the box down, running his hand along the desk's edge. 35 years at this desk. I thought I'd die here. Instead, you nearly killed the company here. He flinched, but continued packing. Photos, awards, a crystal paperweight I'd given him for Father's Day years ago. He picked up the last item, turning it in his hands. Keep it, I said. You gave it to me when you were 16. Said it was to remind me to see things clearly. He placed it back on the desk. I never did I? Before I could respond, Garrett burst in. Anna, we have a situation. The London division. I told you about London, my father interrupted. Not everything. Garrett handed me a tablet. The partnership agreement your brother signed, he used company assets as collateral. If we don't pay up by Friday, we lose control of 3 major subsidiaries. My father sank into a chair. That's impossible. I would have known. Like you knew about the fake accounts? I scrolled through the documents, my mind racing. How much? 50 million, minimum. Jesus, Kingsley, my father whispered. I pressed the intercom. Marlowe, get me the board on conference. Now. Then to Garrett. Call your banking contacts. See what strings you can pull. Already did. He moved closer, lowering his voice. They want personal guarantees. Your assets, not the company's. Done. I was already pulling up my financial records. Anna, no. My father stood up. You can't risk everything you've built. Like you did? I spun to face him. This is what running a company means. This is what I've been trying to tell you for years. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save what matters. The intercom buzzed. Board's ready. I can help, my father said quietly. I still have connections, relationships. The same relationships that let this happen? I shook my head. Go home, Dad. Let me fix this. The next 12 hours were a blur of conference calls, legal documents, and number crunching. By midnight, I'd leveraged everything I owned against the loans needed to save the London division. Zara found me at my desk at 2 a.m., staring at the final paperwork. Your mother called, twice. She's worried. She's always worried these days. I signed the last document. Did you know Kingsley called me from rehab yesterday? What did he say? That he was sorry, that he never meant for any of this to happen. I laughed tiredly. Funny how people only apologize after they've burned everything down. Speaking of apologies, Zara nodded toward the door. My father stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept either. You're still here, I said. So are you. He set 1 coffee in front of me. I've been sitting in the lobby for hours, watching you save my company. Our company. I didn't do it for you. I know. He sat down heavily. You did it because it was right, because you're better at this than I ever was. He pulled out an envelope, which is why I want you to have this. Inside was a letter, formally transferring his remaining shares to me. Dad, I was wrong, Anna, about everything, and I'm sorry it took losing everything to see it. He stood up, straightening his shoulders. The company's yours now, completely. Don't make my mistakes. As he turned to leave, I called out, Dad, thank you. He nodded once and walked out, leaving me alone in the office where I'd once been told I didn't belong. My phone buzzed. Garrett, loans approved, we're clear. Then another message from Kingsley. Heard what you did with London. Thank you. I'd like to make amends if you'll let me. I looked at my father's empty box, still sitting by the door. The crystal paperweight caught the early morning light, scattering rainbows across my desk. See things clearly, I murmured, picking it up. Maybe it was time we all did. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee and fresh pastries as I sat across from Kingsley at our mother's favorite cafe. He looked different after rehab. Clearer eyes, steadier hands, humbler somehow. The therapy's helping, he said, stirring his tea. Made me realize some things about myself, about us. Like what? Like how I was so scared of failing Dad's expectations that I ended up fulfilling them instead. He met my eyes. And how I took out all that fear on you. My phone buzzed. Garrett with the quarterly reports. Rivera Enterprises stock had hit a 5-year high. The company's doing well. Kingsley nodded at my phone. No surprise there. You were always the smart one. Being smart wasn't enough, though, was it? I set my phone down. Not for Dad. No, but that was his failure, not yours. He pulled out a folder. Which is why I want you to have these. Inside were documents detailing every questionable deal he'd made, every hidden account, every mistake. Why are you showing me this? Because healing starts with honesty, and because you deserve to know exactly what you saved us from. Before I could respond, I spotted our parents walking toward the cafe. Mom had insisted on this family meeting, our first since everything happened. Ready for this? Kingsley asked. Are you? Dad looked older, but more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. He'd started consulting for small businesses, Mom had told me, helping them avoid the mistakes he'd made. Anna? He nodded, sitting down. The London division's numbers look good. We're not here to talk business, Mom interrupted, squeezing his hand. We're here as a family. Actually, I pulled out my own folder. We need to do both. I distributed copies of a document to each of them. This is my plan for the future of Rivera Enterprises. Dad started reading immediately, his eyebrows rising. You want to create a family council with all of us? The company started as a family legacy. I want to preserve that, but do it right this time. I took a deep breath. Dad, your experience is valuable. Kingsley, you understand relationships better than anyone. And Mom, you've always seen things the rest of us missed. But you'll maintain control? Dad asked. Complete control. This isn't about power anymore. It's about building something sustainable, something we can all be proud of. Kingsley leaned forward. What role do you see for me? Community outreach, building bridges instead of burning them. Once you're ready. Mom wiped tears from her eyes. This is what I always wanted for all of you. To work together, support each other. There's one more thing. I pulled out a final document. My personal shares in the company, split into trust funds for future generations. No child of this family will ever feel excluded again. Dad's hands shook as he read it. This is very generous. It's not generosity, it's learning from the past. I looked at each of them. We all made mistakes, we all hurt each other. But maybe now we can build something better. To new beginnings, Kingsley raised his cup. As we talked, really talked, for the first time in years, my phone buzzed again. Zara had sent a photo of the new company logo being installed on the building. Below it, the words, Rivera Enterprises, a family legacy renewed. I have a board meeting, I said, standing up, but same time next week? Mom hugged me tight. We'll be here. Dad stood awkwardly for a moment before speaking. Anna, I'm proud of you, not because of the company's success, but because you became everything I should have been. I learned from your mistakes, I said, and my own. Walking to my car, I heard Kingsley call out, Hey sis, thank you for not giving up on us. I thought about revenge, about karma, about the fine line between justice and healing. That's what family does, I replied. The real kind, anyway. At the office, Zara waited with Garrett and Marlo. How'd it go? I looked at the crystal paperweight on my desk, at the family photo I'd finally put up beside it. We're getting there, one day at a time. The board's waiting, Marlo reminded me. I straightened my jacket, feeling the weight of legacy, old and new, on my shoulders. Then let's not keep them waiting. We have a future to build. As I walked into the boardroom, I caught my reflection in the window. Not just Gregory Rivera's daughter anymore, not just the woman seeking revenge, but someone stronger. Someone who understood that true power isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in building something better from the pieces. Good morning, I said to the board, taking my seat at the head of the table. Let's begin.